Going to be presenting on accessible presentations, practical techniques for accessible slide decks. I am Hope Allwine. I am a digital accessibility specialist here at Accessible Web. And let's go ahead and get started. So, presentations are a powerful tool, but we must ask the fundamental question: how do we ensure everyone gets the same experience? Accessible presentations aren't impossible and don't have to be boring, but some key questions in planning are essential to making sure that the information gets to everyone. We're going to use a metaphor to guide us through the process of creating and presenting your presentation. It's similar to making a sandwich. So we're going to cover the following topics, starting with the preparation phase, then moving to the bread, which is the presentation foundation. Then we will discuss the meat, the veggies, and cheese. Uh, that's going to be the presentation components. And finally, the condiments, which is presentation transitions. And we'll wrap it up with kind of the final lunchtime mealtime, which is the presentation itself. All right, we're going to go to the next slide, which starts with the preparation phase. First things first, we need to establish what kind of presentation sandwich we're making. And that includes asking some following questions. So first one, who is your audience? Are you speaking to a technical crowd or people that may need a bit more explanation, like if your stakeholders are not familiar, if you're, presenting software, something to that extent. Your second question is going to be, what software are you using to create your presentation, and what accessibility tools are already embedded within that software? The top contenders are Google Slides, Microsoft PowerPoint, Canva, and any number of other products. Remember, not all software is created equally. Some have more accessibility tools than others, and we're not recommending one software tool over another, as each software has pros and cons. It really comes down to what is available to you and how well you can use it. Moving to the next question, can you get your presentation done and make it available to your audience prior to the actual presentation? Having slides or materials available in a more accessible format, like in text, gives people the option to use their own assistive technologies if they desire. The next question is, can you reach out to participants and see what accommodations may be needed for the actual meeting itself? As we discussed in previous webinars, reaching out to speakers and participants prior can help the planning process and better prepare the table for the event itself. And our last question is, are you using your own templates or company branding? Setting the parameters prior to creating your presentation is a recommended step, as it can take some of the pressure off of or some of the questions off, such as if you're starting from scratch or you already have pre-made layouts or templates available. So we're going to move on to the next slide. So we are going to start with the bread, the presentation foundations. Okay, we've got the kitchen set up for the sandwich prep. First step, you need to gather and prepare the ingredients. Like, do you want your bread toasted, or do you need to prepare the vegetables so they can be easily placed on your sandwich? Before you begin your presentation process, ask the question, what components are you going to need for this presentation? Are you going to need graphs, tables, images, videos? So start gathering those components together, and then organize the components into piles and make sure you're ready for putting them into your presentation. For example, if you have a video clip in your presentation, make sure that it's already equipped with the necessary accessibility requirements, like captions, audio descriptions, a text transcript, and other needs. Once you have those already prepped, create an outline of the presentational content and what goes where. This leads to our second step, which is laying out the bread and starting the creation process with a clean slide deck. You're then going to take your outline and start adding your slide titles for each slide. Then you want to add your necessary headings. This creates a semantic foundation for the presentation. It also helps preserve a predictable reading order. Remember to keep a logical order. Most languages read from top to bottom, left to right. but you may have another language that you are presenting in that is different, but make sure that you have a predictable reading order. And avoid adding text boxes in just random places on a slide. Utilize the tools within the application to create your headings and your semantic information so it can be exported as an outline or another format, and it will make sense no matter how it is printed out or given out. Check that any templates that are used are clearly marked components, such as placeholders for lists, images, and video players. You're all set for starting to build your sandwich. And let's move on to the next slide. So our next step, we're going to concentrate on the meat or meat substitutes for those who do not eat meat. We are concentrating on presentation components. So step 3, you're going to add your meat or meat substitute to your sandwich, as that usually is the main star of the sandwich, and you're going to want to start with your text and images first. We recommend starting with text because that is a pretty easy thing to do, but when you are adding your text, remember the following rules. Use plain language so anybody can understand it clearly. If you do have technical terms or acronyms, make sure that you define those and the acronyms when they first appear in the presentation. Another good point is bullet points or ordered lists are great for presentations as they are easier to digest on a large screen over a wall of text. And lastly, ensure your text is large enough to read even if people are in the back of the room or you're like me and you occasionally forget your glasses. So always make sure your text is big enough. All right, then you're going to start adding your images with keeping in mind some key points. You want to ask yourself, is the image meaningful or decorative? If it is meaningful, make sure that you add the alt text and if possible, add a description to the slide itself. Complex images like infographics can be valuable tools, but remember, if it is important enough to put it in the presentation, then it is important enough to describe it to your audience. Be sure to note every meaningful image as a talking point. And we are going to advance to our next slide. And we are going to be covering the vegetables and cheese, more presentation components, including graphs, tables, video, or audio clips. Moving to step 4, you're going to start adding those vegetables or components like graphs and tables. If you're adding graphs or tables, if possible, make it available separate from the presentation so people can use their own devices to go through that data or examine the graphs. Add alt text to describe the key trends or patterns within the graph or table. If possible, add a figure caption. Explain aloud the key points of the graph or table because you don't really want to sit there all day and read a data table in its entirety. So explain aloud the key points of each graph and table. Ensure your color contrasts for the graphs or tables, if you're using multiple colors, are sufficient. And we're going to move to step 5, which is adding the cheese or video and audio clips. So video or audio clips can be useful in presentations, but be sure you can answer the following questions. Are there controls on the video? So can you pause it? Is it going to cause an adverse reaction? Like if there are flashing lights, if there are, then you definitely need to warn the audience prior to playing that clip. Does it have a text transcript? Does it have audio descriptions? Can the space that you are presenting accommodate its speaker system so everybody can hear and you're not just using like a laptop speaker? So, the front row can probably hear, but if you're in the back, you can't hear. So you definitely want to make sure that all of those questions are answered and you are confident with your video or audio clip. All right, once you've answered these, it's time to move to our next slide. We are covering the condiments or presentation transitions. So step 6, you're going to add your condiments on the top. And we are going to start with talking about animations. Animations can be helpful. Like if you're doing a slide on shipping speeds, a small truck driving across the bottom of the slide can be a pertinent component. But also remember, animations can be distracting, so keep them to a minimum. Also, if you do use one, if it's possible to just have the animation play once and stop, that is ideal. Explain the motion to the audience as again, if it's important enough to put on the slide, it's important enough to describe it. Animations can also be in the form of GIFs, but make sure for GIFs that you do have an alt text or a description on the slide, and to remember to use those sparingly, as most GIFs, in my experience, do not have the ability to pause that motion. And lastly, we're going to cover slide transitions. Slide transitions can be a tool to help the audience take some time to digest the information that was just presented to them, but don't let it take too long. Also, you can simplify by adding a short sentence on what the slide transition is, like fading to the next slide or moving to the next slide. I've even seen swiping, whatever direction to the next slide. I don't recommend using complex slide transitions, such as if a previous slide is sliced up into pieces to present the next slide, as that is just, it's too complicated, it's a lot of motion, and it's just not recommended. So focus on simple transitions. And speaking of slide transitions, we are ready to go to the next slide. All right, it's mealtime. We have an image of a delectable sandwich on white bread with lettuce, cheese, meat, and tomatoes on the slide to make us all wish we had a better lunch. Let's get to the final steps for preparing for your presentation. Practice means progress, not necessarily perfection. It helps build confidence as well as ensuring that you're speaking clearly. Enunciating your words makes you both easier to understand and hear. While you are practicing, put yourself in your audience's shoes. Analyze your slides and see if you can find any accessibility issues, such as could an image use a better description, or can a description be better written so that you can get your point across a little bit better? So you can start by analyzing your slides and see how you can improve. Also, send out your materials beforehand. Again, if possible. I know it's not always possible, but if possible. And make it available in a more accessible format, such as text. You can also send out a link to people's emails that signed up with access to your charts or your graphs or the entire presentation. It's up to you. Now it's presentation time and time to enjoy your delicious, accessible presentation sandwich that you've made. Also remember that feedback can be a very valuable tool, so asking your participants to give you your thoughts can boost your confidence, but it also can help you discover something that you either didn't think about or you've never had experience with. So that wraps up our webinar on accessible presentations, and we are going to move to our next slide, which is how accessible web can help. And this is where Gianna jumps in, or Ben.
Jan, are you still with us? Are you able to
There we go.
pop in? Oh, okay.
Apologies, guys. Hello. Yes. So if you're here every week, then you know that we offer a comprehensive range of accessibility services. So the first one I'll mention, and I'll drop a coupon code in the chat, is Accessible Web Ramp. So Ramp is our platform that allows you to kind of begin the accessibility process on your own if you'd like. It includes a range of tools to both begin assessing and also managing your accessibility positioning. So if you'd like to try out Ramp and you haven't yet, please check out that coupon link in chat for an extra month on your free trial there. In addition to that, we offer audits, VPAT reports, and consulting services here. So we are kind of your all-around accessibility partner. If you have any projects or accessibility needs, obviously we are here to help with that. So with that, I will let us jump into the office hours section of our webinar office hours.